Hey, what's up? This is Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. Expectations have changed. So it seems have slogans also. We'll talk about the Jaguars and the new way of thinking for the rest of this 2021 season. And we'll do it in just a second here on a Hump Day edition of Locked On Jaguars. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on? Wild and crazy day in college football, I tell you that. But we're going to talk a little NFL here today on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, your host of Locked On Jaguars, and I thank you very kindly for making us your first listen of the day. When Urban Meyer got hired, and yes, we're going to continue to talk about Urban Meyer. When he was hired, it was the best of the best that was supposed to come. It was the you felt that they were going to do things differently. They'd probably be very, very innovative and very aggressive, and talk and play with a lot of swagger. Right. Well, losing will change everything. And it seems that it's also changed the attitude of a lot of people in this city, especially some in the media, where you hear them now saying, give him a chance. Those, like, he hasn't done a great job, but you got to give him time. And the give him time people always seem to attach a couple of words with what they say that sounds something like this: he's figuring it out. And that bewilders me a little bit, because my thing with that is, when he got hired, he came in with the swagger and the talk of a guy who had it figured out. So I'm sure Shad Khan did not give him carte blanche of the organization to bring in all of the coaches to do all of these things differently the way that he wants to do them. I'm sure he didn't do all of that stuff in order for Urban to come in here and basically do what I consider a version of on-the-job training, OJT. You probably thought he had a good idea of what he wanted to do. He probably thought he had a good idea of what he wanted to accomplish. And Urban himself says, and you don't expect him to say anything else, Urban says, this isn't a throwaway year. It's win now. We're not trying to win later. It's not fair to the guys in there. So when a guy says that, it's not abnormal for anybody else to draw the conclusion that he either didn't have it figured out, which is obvious now, or he didn't know the depth of what he was actually getting into. So that leads you to now reassess this entire situation and ask yourself, if he didn't know what he was getting into, and he doesn't necessarily have a way out of what he's getting into, what is the point of giving him more time to do what he thought he was going to be able to do, but he obviously doesn't know how to do? And what makes you think that he has an opportunity to change that? Does Urban Meyer have the capacity to change and adapt and move forward? Maybe. I mean, he's a very successful guy. He didn't get this far in life and in coaching, not being pretty good at what he does, right? So my question is, how do you know that? And what actually went wrong? I'm going to keep going through this, but in the second segment, I'm going to play devil's advocate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually represent Urban Meyer, and I'm going to point out some things that, if he is the right guy for the job, what are some of the things that he did wrong, or some of the visions that he had that he could change after this season. Because what it comes with is, in order for us to even get to that, here's what segment 3 is going to be about. I'm going to explain to you what has to happen in these next 5 weeks in order for us to even get to that Shad Khan or the fans would give him the benefit of the doubt, and he could have confidence that he would be the guy that changes it. So to set up segment 2, I have to first say what I believe Urban did wrong to have the Jaguars sitting where they are at 2-11. Um, the first thing I think that he did wrong, I think he underestimated the NFL and the coaches in the NFL. I really do. Um, I believe a guy who's never set foot in the NFL probably didn't understand. It's not like a guy like Matt Rule. It's not even like a guy like Nick Saban. Matt Rule coached in the NFL. It was only for 1 year, but he saw it. And I think he was on a Coach Coughlin staff up in New York. And Nick Saban obviously coached in the NFL. Before he ever became a head coach in college, he was on the staff with Nick Saban up in Cleveland as the defensive I mean, not Nick Saban, Bill Belichick in Cleveland as the defensive coordinator. So once you've been in it, you have a vision of it and you sort of understand it. And even Pete Carroll was in the NFL before he went to USC and made his run. I think by being in it, you know what it takes, and and you have more respect for the people there. And I'm not just talking about respect for their ability to coach. I'm talking about the respect of how things operate in operations, in football operations, where it comes to scouting, knowing and understanding the difference between director of player personnel and director of pro personnel, and what their degrees of uh, difficulty in their job is, understanding the importance of having a very good director of college scouting, understanding and knowing that you are on the same page when your scouts go out. They have certain traits and attributes that they're looking for, and also understanding the way a football team operates, meaning your current NFL coaches don't look and don't care and aren't so busy evaluating college to look for potential players next year because they have their hands full today. So this goes back to not really respecting the game and not really respecting what these guys are capable of. Because when you do, you also hire more of those guys than you do college guys. And then you also conduct training camp a little bit differently. And that's why the Jaguars, I believe, got off to a very, very slow start. So what I'm going to do is, after pointing those things out to you, I'm going to discuss what are some of the things that I think Urban Meyer, if he's going to improve, has to do. Now, first of all, they have to have a good showing down the stretch. And like I said, in segment 3, I'll talk to you about the likelihood that they can even do that and breathe just a little bit of life back into this organization. But first, we're going to backtrack before we play any games, but I'm going to tell you what I think. If Urban Meyer is going to be retained as coach, what he has to do in order to be successful moving forward. See, I'm just trying to lay out a blueprint, man, and give you guys a shot that, hey, man, there's at least a shot that this thing could work, because I've been firing the dude all week. So we'll do that in the second segment here on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you guys about what's going on for Super Bowl 56 in SoFi and On Location. On Location is the official hospitality partner of the NFL, and it's the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. Select your seats, exact seats, and choose from an elite experience featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. I had his food in Vegas. It's very, very good at this restaurant. Visit On Location, exp.com/SB56 for more information, or just search Super Bowl On Location. That's On Location, exp.com/SB56, or search Super Bowl On Location. I want to tell you guys also about Standard. Now, Standard is making some apparel for you that's super, super comfortable. All right. Socks, quality socks, t-shirts, underwear, all of that stuff. There's nothing like, it's almost like when you buy bed sheets, how you go looking for 4 and 5 and 600 count bed sheets. Well, Standard is the best at making those comfortable garments for you. And they've actually gotten together with some of the biggest influencers in pop culture and collaborated for the ultimate style in self-expression. So not only will you look good, look comfortable, what you'll also do is you'll be representing your swag based on collaborators like the Wu-Tang Clan, Batman, the Goonies, Star Wars, The Office, Harry Potter, Disney, Marvel, Bob Marley, that's my favorite, or Major League Baseball or NBA or Pixar. You can get out with it, man, and all you got to do is register for an account at stance.com and you'll get 15% off your first order or purchase. Use the promo code Locked On to check out to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary. withstands. There ain't nothing worse than having a bad stitch in your garments that are close to your body, and you got to have them on all day. And you can't go grabbing on them either because people will think you're crazy. You don't have to even embarrass yourself like that. Go to stance.com and make sure you use the promo code locked on. All right, man, we're going to roll along here on a Wednesday, on hump day. And I'm going to skip ahead to the offseason. Let's just say the Jaguars in the season, and this is what I believe. If Shad Khan retains Urban Meyer, and if Urban really does believe that they did some things, that obviously it wasn't just the team that he inherited, that he actually has to change some things. So here's what it is. The first thing I'm telling Shad Khan to do is allow me to find another general manager, because I am telling Trent Baalke to kick rocks. And I probably would say it just like that. I'm telling Trent, you got to go. I would look to find a personnel person from an organization that that has built something very, very successful recently. I would look for a person who understands the importance of scouting and the scouting department, who can find and hire a good scouting, a director of college scouting, who can understand and get people that are people or people person in charge in those specific positions. And I would then make sure that that person understands what I would like as a coach, and then I would trust him and the scouts to go out and find it. That's what I would do. I would back off of this notion that you have to have this familiarity with guys, and that you're going to shrink your pool, your talent pool, to only guys that either you are familiar with or that someone on your staff is familiar with. Because let me tell you something. You do that, you're going to be in a world of hurt. There's a team right now in the league that seems like all they do is draft players from Alabama or the SEC, and they're still basically sitting at 500. So my thing is you have to get beyond the the familiarity, and you have to get beyond the way you're used to doing things in terms of having a relationship. And at some point, when you're already delegating authority, there's something that comes along with delegation, and that's trust. And sometimes you have to trust people based on their record as opposed to based on their relationship with you. So just for kicks, let me just tell you that I think one of the senior vice presidents of player personnel at Kansas City is a guy named Mike Bradway. Mike Bradway is a longtime scout, whether with Kansas City or in Philadelphia, who is a scout. He went from being an area scout. In fact, he was an area scout when in Philly, when in Louis Riddick's last year, when Louis Riddick was the president of pro personnel. So it's very significant that I'm telling you this. He has his next. He's an executive vice president or the assistant GM in charge of football operations. With football operations, they run the scouting department and the pro personnel department. So he's the player personnel, one of the player personnel directors with Kansas City, and he has a very, very strong scouting. He's a young guy too. He's not even 40 years old, but he has a vast experience of what you need to do in terms of being director of a football team. And I think he'd work well in that position. You could hire an assistant GM, a guy who is not necessarily a football guy, but a salary cap expert type money guy to kind of make sure that everyone has checks and balances. So that's what I would do. And I would hope Mike goes and says, "Hey, Lou, you want the same job you had when you left the NFL? You want to be my director of pro personnel?" And I've broken that down before and told you the difference. And the reason why a lot of people go, "You need to get Lou Riddick to be the GM," and I pause on that. I love Lou Riddick, but I pause on that is because the highest position he's ever had is one of pro personnel, which they scout the other teams in the NFL, and that helps out a lot in free agency. And that department is generally a little bit smaller than the college scouting department, because you're looking at 32 teams as opposed to looking at 300 college football teams all around the country. So I would ask him if he would like that same position. Um, I would hope he would say yes, or maybe give him the director of player personnel, which would then be a way to springboard him to get him ready to go to be a GM, the way Scott Pioli and the way the guy in Atlanta who came from Terry Fontenot. He came from New Orleans. Terry Fontenot was a longtime pro personnel guy without any experience in director of college scouting, but he did it for so long that eventually they elevated him to the director of player personnel, which oversees both, which gave him the pertinent experience he needed to then be a GM. So I would get him to do that. And then someone else who has a long time scouting eye, who currently has a position and a capacity um, at the Senior Bowl. He's the director of scouting at the Senior Bowl. He's the player personnel director, Matt Nagy. I would probably say, hey, Matt, you want to run my entire scouting department and be my director of college scouting. So now you have a guy who has his finger on the pulse of all of this stuff, because he's right now getting guys to come to the Senior Bowl. I'd ask him to come be my director of college scouting. And then I would fill my scouting staff out based on all of those connections and all of those years and years and years of understanding what this job is about. And that's the first thing I do. That's the main thing I would do. Then I would, after that, delegate some authority, make it clear as to what it is I want from size, positions, and all of that stuff, and make sure that they understand that and they could go get it. Then I would obviously make coaching changes, right? And I would probably use Mike Bradway for that a little bit, but more or less, I would use the act of humility that I'm actually going to be less hands-on and more of a guy who sort of navigates this franchise through and not get in the way, and not come out in the media and say them, and I'd say we and us more. And then I'd hire a good staff. I'd probably retain everybody on defense or just replace the guys that may leave for other jobs. But I would also go out and I would make sure I get me somebody who's very, very dynamic offensively, who understands what I want to see on the field and doesn't have any problem taking what I see on the field and giving it through his vision and through his lens, putting the product on the field that I want to see. And then I go draft away and sign me some free agents, and that's how we'll improve. But I think the first thing you need to do is the act of humility and undo some of the things that you did in the past. Now, before we get to that point of giving him a second run, something would probably have to happen to create a little bit more confidence. And I'll tell you what that is. I think I got a clue on what that could be. And I'll tell you what it is in just a second here on our third and final segment on the Wednesday on Locked On Jaguars. I'm also going to tell you about Built Bar this holiday season, because you need to grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with a decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low calories, low sugar, low net carbs and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. My favorite one is salted caramel, but there's a ton of flavors that you can choose from depending on what it is that you like. And you can get them at built.com. When you use the promo code LOCK15, you're going to get 15% off of your order. Christmas time, don't try to deprive yourself of and be guilty and eating those snacks. You can do it. But when you're out and about, it's not like you got a piece of apple pie, a peach cobbler in the car with you. If you do, you got an issue. But you can definitely put a Built Bar in your purse or in your pocket and snatch that out and go ahead and get the energy you need to deal with the holiday traffic, as well as all of those long lines in those stores while you do your shopping. So make sure you go again to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. All right, man, we're going to roll along here on this Wednesday. We thank you again for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Let me explain something to you, man. Before we even get to giving Urban a mulligan, what we have to do is see some enthusiasm at the end of the year. I got a news flash for you. They ain't beating the Patriots. We can forget about that one. But they do play games against the Jets. They got a game this Sunday against the Titans, and you'll hear the crossover edition for that tomorrow with those foolish brothers of mine from Houston. I think they play the Colts again. They have some winnable games here down the stretch. They have a couple of games where they should be competing. They played the coach pretty tough the first time, but since then things have sort of gone off the rails for him a little bit. But of these 5 games, that there are 3 games where they should be able to. They play the Jets. They ought to be able to come up and say, hey, especially with the Jets and the Texans, because they're all the Jets, the Texans, and the Lions and the Jaguars are all battling to see who's going to be at the bottom of the tank. At some point, you got to stand up and say, hey, at least that's not me. I'm not them. We're further along than they are. If you can get you 2 or 3, 5-12 on paper looks a whole lot better than 2-15. Because 2-15, you still too close to 1-15 to show that you actually did make some progress. Now I know everybody's mad at him, and I know everybody's angry at him, and I know folks want Shad to run him, and you have to come to the reality though that just might not happen. So if that doesn't happen, or if you think it might not happen, so we have to figure out a plan in order for Urban to get to the end game, so he can make appropriate changes and try to improve. Since we've now gone from having a plan to now needing more time and trying to get it figured out. We've gone from the guy who knew everything to the guy that needs to know or understands he needs to make adjustments. So I don't know where at some point we did that, but that's where we are. So if we're going to give him a chance to figure it out, he needs to give us something down the stretch. String 2 good games together. Be competitive. Score more than 21 points for the first time this season. Do something to give us the enthusiasm that we need, or give us the enthusiasm that we want to have in order for us to feel okay about the fact that this dude, Shad Khan, might give you another shot. And if he's going to give you another shot, it's inevitable that at some point we're going to have to get behind you and think and hope that it's going to be all right. Because every fan, no matter how bad a fan says they want to get rid of Urban Meyer, no matter how fast people say they want to run him out of here, nobody wants to see the team that they love and the team that they root for continuously struggle. Therefore, in order to do that, you're going to have to find a way to prepare yourself for the fact that you probably, or you have a real good shot that he's going to be here next year, and that you hope that he makes some changes. Even if you don't like him, you hope that he makes the right kind of changes, from learning that this is not easy up here. It might look easy. It might look slow. It might not look as exciting as college football. It might look rather pedestrian, because you're not teaching a bunch of 18-year-olds who can't even make their legs run straight, and they, some of them look like little reindeers that just got born, and then now you all of a sudden you turn them into this big strong animal. You know what I'm saying? Well, you think they're already made when they come to the NFL, but the difference is that's the point. Usually in the NFL, they're ready made. So you can help them a little bit, but you're kind of stuck with them. Like during the season, they don't get better. During the season, they don't get stronger. You just continuously do maintenance during the season. Whereas when you're playing guys in college, you got, about 35 guys that don't play, and all they do all the time is lift weights and get better and improve and get bigger and stronger so that they're ready to play. So you got guys in college that you're playing, other guys that you're getting ready to play. That doesn't work in the league. And I think he's trying to do it now with a lot of his rookie class. And people are saying, this doesn't work like this. These guys got to come in here ready to go. So, especially when you're a bad team. When you're a good team, you can kind of have guys on red shirt, but you can't do that with a bad football team. So hopefully he'll start at the top with Trent Baalke, and then he'll move into help with the front office hires, stabilize that situation a little bit better, take some of the day-to-day operations off of him so he can just focus on training his team and his coaches. And then we'll see how it goes. So that's my path to all of this in a nutshell. We're going to see what Houston's talking about on the crossover, and we'll have that for you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tune in and listen to the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. Great information, especially all you guys that wager, all you guys that make your bets and you wager. This is where you're going to go to get some information, because it's going to be really, really super helpful for you to find out some of these tells on some of these games, because it's been ridiculous. I picked 5 teams the other day and all of them lost. I mean, I was done if one of them lost, but they all lost. So it's almost as if I should have just picked the other 5. I should have hedged my bets and put the other 5. You know what I'm saying? And I'd have won me some money. So you can check that podcast out and like, subscribe, and follow that podcast so it can help you out before you make your wagers. All right, man. Y'all take care of each other. Have a good day. Look at what's going on in college football. Go over to Locked On HBCU, man. It's going bananas over there right now because of some news that hit. You guys take care of yourself and take care of each other. And we'll see you tomorrow here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast.